Day 15 of the Quarantine Reviews. Edmund casts a light on Blackjazz by Shining.
Got a bit of different fare for you this time around. Jazz, black metal with avant-garde elements fusion. It kind of sounds like if Primus and Tomahawk had a baby and that baby teamed up with a jazz quartet. And it's kind of awesome for that. So I first encountered Shining when they were playing support for Devin Townsend back in about 2010, 2011, around that time. It was a while ago. It was when this album was actually new. And since then, I've been meaning to actually get around to covering them. Now is as good a time as any. Now I'm going to approach this with two favourites and one least favourite. The reason for the two favourites is one is what's my favourite of the album overall and what's my favourite of their work. It'll make sense in a moment. So without further ado, let's get into it. So personal favourite overall on the album is their cover of 21st Century Schizoid Man by King Crimson. That takes an already manic and furious track and turns it into this absolute confluence of insanity and yet technical proficiency. Every musician is at various points playing in their own corner and sort of disparate from each other. And as it progresses, it builds and builds, and eventually they all come together in this simultaneously nutso and yet entirely coherent chaos. And almost like they are using the music to fully realise the idea of this schizoid man. And it's just absolutely glorious for it. I found it to be something rather amazing to behold. If you're familiar with the original, then you'll get what I'm talking about. If you're not, look up 21st Century Schizoid Man by King Crimson, because it goes places and this goes even more. Favourite of their original work would be track 2, Fisheye. That really feels like it showcases the band's talents, really effectively gives an idea of the album's sound overall, and is the most accessible of the tracks. It's still got the slightly chaotic nature, but I feel if you're trying to get an idea of what the band is like but want something to ease you in, that's the best track to go for. It's got this nice, cool, funky drum beat opening leading into cool keyboard play, and the guitars really round out the opening sound, and then as the vocals are gradually introduced, that's where you start to hear sort of the black metal influences in terms of production sound and sort of the growls and that sort of thing. There's this nice sort of manic, crazed paranoia going on with the singing and how it reflects on the strange refrains that go on throughout the lyrics. They're sort of reflecting on various number sequences, and apparently that's in reference to Kabbalic numerology and number mysticism, and also the odd time signature that is used for the song, which is 7/4. Apparently that's a very odd time signature to come across. It's also referencing certain dates like the 1394 plague in Norway. So it's it's kind of a, you dig deeper and deeper, and you find a lot of interesting little factoids that is sort of like, okay, I'm digging this, and I want to learn more. Least favourite track on the album would be track 8, Omen. To be honest, it's not much critique to go on here other than it feels like padding, and that's not a good sign when it's the second longest track on the album at like 8 minutes 46 seconds. These tracks are long ones, so if you're not a fan of longer songs, I wouldn't recommend this. It's slow, it's meandering, it lacks a lot of the chaotic energy that you get used to over the course of the album, and to be honest, I feel like it could have easily been cut and nothing would have been lost. I feel like Blackjazz Death Trance would easily flow into 21st Century Schizoid Man, and there would be absolutely no problem, and the momentum would be maintained. Blackjazz definitely goes places. It's bold, it's aggressive, it's chaotic. It's the sort of album that you have to go in head first and leave your cares behind, and you will either find a continuous method to the madness, or you will just be completely turned off by it. I loved it personally, but I can totally understand people who are sort of like, yeah, this isn't for me. As far as I'm concerned, Blackjazz gets a 4 out of 5. That's it for this episode. Stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully we won't all be 21st century schizoid people after this.